Why does it take a health coach to tell people
Yep.
what they know already?
If a person is not committed to it, they aren't going to be successful.
The one thing that will change your life is believing that you are worth.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vonda Wright, and this is Hot for Your Health. Join us for conversations on the bleeding edge of science, health, and culture as we bring you tech innovators, thought leaders, and the movers and shakers who are transforming science fiction into your new health reality.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hot for Your Health, where every week I talk to change makers, innovators, and really interesting people interested in health and your life. So this week, I have an amazing guest. Not only is she a tech maven, she has been a CEO for one of the biggest sports empires, a frenetic guy, I won't name him, and for a long time has been a personal trainer and health coach, and now has joined the VMD Global Media. Did you know that was the name of my company? VMD Global Media team to really bring us to the world. So I'm so happy today to have Lauren Ramsey in studio. We are, just for those of you around this area, we are in the Lake Nona Media Studio in the Guidewell building. And when I came to Lake Nona, this was the only building. We are continuing to be surrounded by cows, but this is the only building. But you are new to our ecosystem.
Yes.
So welcome.
Thank you.
So just so our crowd gets to know you, what's your story? Where do you come from?
Yeah.
And what drives you?
What drives me? Okay. So I'm originally from Delaware, and I grew up there, small little beach town. I am the daughter of a single parent, and I had a very simple growing up. I went to college when I was very young. I went when I was 16 years old, off to college. I wanted to be a dancer.
Did you skip some grades or something?
I did. I also have a late birthday. So my birthday's in December. So I feel like some of the rules didn't apply as they do today about when they place children in school. But and I did skip a grade or so. And but I went to college to be a dance major. And I soon learned that that was a very expensive major for someone who's paying for college by themselves. And
it may or may not pan out in
it
terms
may or
of
may
income.
not pan out. And you start to kind of do like, hey, I'm paying $900 for a ballet class. Okay, hold on. Maybe this is not the right way. And so I found that in order to support myself in college, I worked all the time. And I found that I really liked it. And I liked it more, actually, than going to college. You know, working, you're learning on the job. When you're sitting in a classroom, you're absorbing information. And I found that was I sort of struggled in that model. But like going out into the world and working was really, it really taught me a lot of things. And so I left college and with the intent of always going back, and I have from time to time taking up a variety of classes and stuff. But somewhere in my early youth, I sort of learned that I was quite good at like things oriented around computers, whether it was programming languages or understanding how you would build a computer, how you would assemble it. And oddly, it sort of turned into a passion of mine. And when I realized I was good at it, I thought, well, if I'm going to do this for a living, I want to do it for the best company in the world.
So wait, you're like Bill Gates.
I don't know if I'm like Bill Gates. I mean, he's very, very high intelligence. But I did say, if I'm going to go work in this field, I want to work for that company. I want to work for that person. And I had a very wonderful career there that spanned almost 2 decades. And I had the privilege of working for him, for working for Steve Ballmer, and also working for Satya Nadella. 3 very different and distinct CEOs with 3 very different cultural shifts in the company. And honestly, I tell everybody I grew up there, and I was very privileged to have worked there during that time frame. And I learned so much, and I was, had the privilege of working with highly intelligent developers. And then as I sort of morphed my career to go into more sales and business operations and partner management and things like that, I found myself someone who didn't have a college education working side by side with folks who, had gotten, big degrees from Harvard and MIT. And I'm kind of a sponge, and I just sort of really absorbed that. And I also really appreciated it. And I did not take any of my time there for granted. I learned everything that I could. And then there became a time where I just felt like everything that I felt I could learn or wanted to do in this company, I felt like it had come to an end, and it felt like, okay, now it's time for me to kind of take that out into the world. You know, I've been trained very well. I felt like every single day I was getting an MBA, and I felt like I was ready to go out into the world. And so I left Microsoft. I retired. Yes.
What was that environment like? Was Microsoft environment more techie engineer geeky kind? Was it fishbowl creatives? Was it learned academics? What was the general atmosphere in that house?
I mean, it's a combination of all of those things. Honestly, I can't speak to whether it still exists in this way, but when I started, my employee number was 11,053. Right? So it really felt like a startup. And I started in March of 98.
Did they start at 11,000 and you were really number 53? Because I describe you as a founding member, which may be hyperbole, but
I mean, honestly, I feel a little bit like a founding member. I mean, even though the company started in 1975, you know, when I joined, we were just on the cusp of, you know, they had just launched Windows 95. You know, we had gone from, a very simple user interface to this, you know, very graphic, intense user interface, and the world was shifting, and it was right as the internet was becoming a thing. And so I really got the opportunity to kind of, as in my career in the computer industry, to ride all three waves. So from mainframe to basically server, client, infrastructure to cloud. And now we find ourselves in this sort of fourth world, which is, you know, artificial intelligence. But I mean, when I worked there, again, three very separate and distinct CEOs, three very different mentalities, very startup oriented under Bill Gates, but a very high intensity, very high intelligent company. And, you know, and then when Steve Ballmer came in, I mean, he doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion, but he grew several billion-dollar businesses under his tenure.
Maybe it's just because I don't know.
Right.
But I've never heard of him.
Oh, so he is the owner of the Clippers?
It continues to be Bill Gates and Melinda, right? Even though all these other people have built this empire.
Well, Steve Ballmer came in, and honestly, he had worked, I mean, he was a early employee, and I mean, he grew that company substantially globally, again, establishing and building multiple billion-dollar businesses. Under his tenure and Bill's, people would have called it a know-it-all culture because your intelligence was your IP, and what you knew, right, was sort of, you know, you basically held that close to the vest because that was how you sort of built your reputation in the company. When Satya Nadella came in, very different mindset. Even though he had been with the company for, you know, multiple decades, I think at that point, he really introduced this concept of the learn-it-all culture. And what that meant was, if I have information, it behooves me to share it with you because together we're better. And he brought in a lot of things that I think at the time people maybe would have thought was kind of like woo-woo, but we as a company, we studied Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, and we learned about the difference between being in a growth mindset versus being in a fixed mindset. And his mentality was, we all have to grow together. When we're fixed, we're not moving forward. And obviously, I think you can tell, or you may not, or may not pay attention to this, but the stock price under Satya's regime, honestly, has grown substantially, and he's taken the company in a very different direction, and things that were sort of the foundations of Microsoft, like Windows and Office and these long-term corporate programs, they have shifted and migrated substantially. And now we're in this world of AI. And so it remains to be seen how all of that unfolds for all of us and what the world of work looks like. But my husband still works there, so you could tell I'm still very connected to it. And honestly, like, that industry still continues to sort of like, you know.
So it's under this third CEO that you're describing that you go from cubicles where nobody's sharing information to the fishbowl.
Yes.
My daughter, Corey, is a chief accountant. I don't know what her real title is other than she basically designed the whole accounting department for her company, which was a startup, and AI automated cars, right? And so all I know about that kind of tech world is what I've seen in her companies, and it's a big open fishbowl, and there are no barriers, and everybody's sharing information and having lunch together. But what you're saying to me is, and I didn't know this, is that is a third generation
Yes.
phase, because
Yes.
before that it was everybody huddled in their tall cubicles, non-communicating, because their IT is their brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
And there was this, again, it was what you knew, that was your power,
Yeah.
right? So you sort of went up in the company because you had so much knowledge and so much power. And now we realize, like, when you open up and you share that with other people and you're willing to teach and learn from someone else, and you open your mind up, then significant things happen.
What's interesting about that is what's happening today in the menopause space. Because I'm an academic surgeon. I was at University of Pittsburgh for 20 years. And when I was coming up, I was one of the first true academics, meaning big ivory tower, doing my own research in among some of the best orthopedic minds in the world. We didn't share.
Right.
We published, but only those who wanted to buy our papers got to read them. And then I was one of the first to start with public education. And I got a lot of negative feedback about that from very high people in the university, saying that doctors didn't do that, we don't educate the public, and seasoned all the bad things, tribunals of lawyers. But I knew I was right. And I knew that we would do light years of good work by sharing information. And so that's where we are in the menopause space right now, is those of us who are sharing publicly are still getting a lot of feedback from the pure academics. And it's okay. I've been in that world. I understand the point behind it. But what you're saying is in the tech world, which is far ahead of medicine in terms of rapid expansion, it wasn't until the third wave that true growth happened by sharing information.
Right.
Are you listening, people? No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I think it's interesting to see that, because I didn't know a thing about tech. So you left Microsoft.
Yes.
And then what happened?
So I retired at the end of 2016, and honestly, I really wanted to go into entrepreneurship, which in 2016, entrepreneurship was like sort of a buzzword, It was like, well, I think growing up, we used to call that small business ownership.
Oh, sure.
Today's entrepreneurship, right?
Doesn't seem quite so romantic.
Exactly.
To be a small business owner.
Exactly. And, my first thought, or where I went initially, was my husband and I bought into a restaurant franchise. So when I was growing up in my small little sleepy beach town, everyone in my family was involved in restaurants, and where I grew up is a tourist area. And so there was this sort of desire to sort of return to my roots, but do it in a way that, aligned to who I was as a human. So we bought into a restaurant franchise out of Arizona that was a healthy fast food type restaurant. And for a variety of reasons, we never, even though we signed all the contracts, we never ended up growing into that space. And it ended up kind of working out for me, because in that time frame of taking that year off, I started just really, I guess, sort of trying to figure out, like, what is it that I care about, right? I mean, when you buy into a restaurant franchise, you don't immediately say, okay, I have the license and now I'm going to go into that space. There is a time for development and figuring out what is the right location and all that. So I had a lot of downtime that I've never really had. And it gave me the opportunity to just start listening to podcasts, doing a lot of reading.
You took a sabbatical.
I basically took a sabbatical, and I spent time with my children who were young at the time. And I did a lot of things that I love to do, like physical activity. I climbed some mountains. I ran some races. I did all the things. And what I realized is that in that time working for Microsoft is that when I left, I didn't know exactly what I knew. But when I went out into the world, I realized, like, wow, Microsoft really armed me with a ton of skills. And it gave me an opportunity when it presented itself in 2017. There was a small food company, startup out of Atlanta, and I came in as chief of staff, and within months I was running that company. And if you had ever asked me, hey, do you think you want to be a CEO, or do you think you're qualified to be a CEO or whatever, I would have told you no. I would have said no. But when I was tapped on the shoulder and asked to step into that position, I felt really confident that I could do it.
So you weren't amongst the 60%. The statistics are that a man, when given an opportunity, will take it when he's 60% qualified. And a woman will not take it unless she's more than 100% qualified. So you kind of put on your XY chromosomes.
kind of. I mean,
And just accepted the job.
when yes, and when the position was offered to me, when it basically that entrepreneur that we were talking about sort of tapped me on the shoulder and said, I think you should consider this and I would like you to do this thing, I actually felt like I was being pushed into it a little bit. And my first response was no. My first response was no. And then there was a conversation about why not. And I was like, I just don't see myself that way. It was never aspirational. There are people who, work in environments and they always want to get to that level. And I never envisioned that for myself. And so, but when it arrived and the opportunity, I thought about it, I thought, well, why not me? And so I did that. And I mean, in everything that you move into in your lifetime, and I hope kids are listening to this, is there's always lessons to be learned. And I learned a ton of lessons, and I also gained a ton of confidence. The thing about working at Microsoft is, again, I'm sitting next to people who went to Harvard and Cornell and all these great, amazing schools. And I felt like I was sitting in a room that I didn't belong in. And I would sit across from Fortune 100 CEOs and CIOs and have great conversations. And I would leave those meetings and say, what the hell am I doing in this meeting?
Could you hold up your end of the conversation?
Yes.
Well, Barack Obama talks about this. Barack talks about you get into these rooms and you're looking across the table and you're like, you're not so hot.
Yes.
I mean, and I think I don't do a lot with things like self-limiting beliefs, but I think it's real.
Yes, it's very real. And but it takes a while for you to realize that. I mean, that's how you felt, or that you actually do belong in that room. But what I always learned, honestly, and is that when you're sitting across from somebody, they're just like you. They may be a parent, they may have a child, they have aging parent, whatever it is. They might like the same sports that you like. They're just a person in a different position. And I think once I sort of got that into my head, my relationship to people with big titles and things like that changed. But anyway, so I ran this food company for a little while, and that sort of transitioned into another opportunity to work for a contract manufacturer and build an incubation program for them, where we worked with small food startup companies, and we could offer them, smaller MOQs for them to come into our space, and we would help them with R&D and ingredient procurement and things of that nature. So I did that for a while. Again, not ever having that skill, but learning it sort of on the fly. And then from there...
What do you think the base skills you have that make you adaptable to different environments? Because I don't think there's a degree in food procurement skill gal. But it must be some baseline skills that are widely applicable.
I think it's that word that I'm very adaptable. I'm highly adaptable, and I'm very curious. And I'm often not afraid, I'm just not afraid. I'm like, oh, and I have a great ability to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from honestly being the child of a single parent without a father, is that I think it's just, I have an ability to figure things out, and I'm not afraid to try.
Yeah.
And it's taught me to be a good executor, so I think that's why. I guess I just feel confident that I can make it happen.
Right.
Yeah. And
everything is fixable.
Everything is fixable, and I'll figure it out. And I'm not somebody who will say, I'm very transparent and honest. Like, hey, I screwed up, or hey, I don't really know how to do that, so I'm going to just go figure it out, or that's a weakness area for me, but hey, we'll figure it out, so.
Well, I wonder then, as I'm hearing you say these things, so many women who are going through the midlife transition arrive at a place and they say what you're saying, indicating that they've not always been that way.
Right.
So having been raised that everything is fixable, right? I kind of feel the same way too. I grew up in a small town in Kansas. We were farmers. Well, we weren't farmers. We rented our land, but I learned how to plow fields, people.
Right.
I mean, you can figure friggin' things out,
yes.
right? Without being told step by step.
Yes.
So if you arrived in midlife that way, is there nothing left for you to learn? Because you arrived, everything is figure-outable.
No, because I think like the world is always presenting us new information, and it's really like that synthesizing, if that's the right word, of like all of that information and figure out what do you do with it. Like today, what I've done prior to coming to work with you is I took a step back and I was like, how do I, after midlife, after I crossed over that line of 50 years old, which by the way is amazing, and I was looking forward to it. Then I crossed over that line, that for whatever is our demarcation line of something changes, which, by the way, fundamentally things did sort of shift for me. And I was looking forward to getting there. I got over it. I patted myself on the back and I said, look at you, girl. Look how far you've come. But what do you really want to be doing with your life?
Now what?
Now what? What do you really want to do with the second half? And honestly, I just, said, okay, well, what do I think about all the time? What do I talk about all the time? What do I care about? What are the conversations I have with people? And the reality is I talk most of the time about health-oriented things.
Why is that?
I don't know. I think it's maybe because I was a dancer and I was an athlete, and I guess I've always had a relationship with my body. And for my body to perform the way I want it to, I've been conscientious of food and things of that, so, and it's not to say that I've been perfect. There were definitely years, back in the 80s, for a dancer to stay thin, what did you do? Well, you smoked a lot of cigarettes, honestly. And that's going to hopefully not play out horribly in my lifetime. But, so I've had periods of time where, those were bad.
You got to get you some bone density.
I don't need my bone density.
That out loud. Yeah.
But, so what I'm saying is, I guess I've always been just conscientious of it. And I think it went up a notch when I used to train for Ironman, long distance triathlon, Ironman distance. And when you're training up to 20 hours a week on top of being a parent of young children, on top of having a full-time job at Microsoft, you become very aware of what you're putting in your body. You're not going to put garbage in because you're going to get garbage out. And that's going to play out in a variety of ways. Inability to think straight, inability to stay awake, grumpy, cranky, poor performance in workouts. And so I think that mixed with, in 2012, my father-in-law got cancer. And it was a very aggressive cancer. And he actually took a different path in terms of the treatment that he went after. He didn't necessarily want to do the chemo route. He had cancer in his throat. He didn't want the recovery on that was, very long and not necessarily successful. And so he went a different direction. And unfortunately, in 18 months, he went from diagnosis to death. And I think when you go through that, it just changes your perspective on things. And you start to just see things differently. And then, I'm looking around me and I just see as a society, right? We're just not quite healthy, right?
Not quite. What are you talking about?
I'm trying to be nice.
30% at least of people have diabetes,
Yes.
we're obese, and
Yes.
70% of us do nothing to stay healthy.
Correct.
So, if we're calling a spade, and that's not a judgment, that's an observation.
Yes.
People get to be who they want to be.
Yes. Yes.
And because we have agency, we get to live with the consequences.
Correct.
So you're being way too nice.
I am being nice. And my mother-in-law is a type 2 diabetic. And so I had not had that in my life prior to having a relationship with her. And so knowing that, what was really interesting is the first time I ever met her, it was 20 some years ago now, she basically told me she was dying. And I remember meeting her for the first time and saying to my now husband, I'm really sorry. I did not know that your mom was dying. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, well, she told me, he's like, she has type 2 diabetes. But when they gave that diagnosis to her 50 years ago, it was a death sentence. And she has lived as if every day that is lingering out there. Now, we know a lot differently now. We know that is a recoverable situation. But for her, it got implanted in her brain, and she has never tried to recover from it. So she has been a lifelong insulin user, metformin, and she has all the consequences of that being the lifestyle of which she leads. So, but I think it's just a combination of that. And so, again, as I turned 50 and I realized, what do I want to be doing in my life? I thought, well, what has worked for me as a human is, and I'll say it out loud, I am a lifelong active and willing participant in diet culture. And I have been, right? Since as long as I can remember, being on a diet or, trying to find the magic, pill, the silver bullet, blah, blah, blah. I've done that my whole life up until the last decade, really. And none of those things work. None of those pills work. And it's not going to save you. And it's not the solution. And what I learned is that when I take a step back and I look at all of the guidance that's been given to us in our whole lives, the guidance actually hasn't changed one bit. Not
Isn't
one
that
bit.
interesting? I have basically been saying the same thing for 20 years. The same truths were true before I started saying it.
Yes.
And yet, every single day, when any of us proclaim it on the internet, it's like novel information.
Exactly. It's not novel. It's basic and it's foundational.
But let me ask you this, because you have your own journey, you are a health coach, a personal trainer. Why do people know what to do and don't do it?
Gosh, there's so many reasons. Honestly, I think it's because, first of all, for whatever reason, people don't believe it can be that easy. People don't believe it can be that easy. And like when I say to somebody, look.
So easy is a bad thing? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know that easy is a bad thing. I just don't think that people believe it. If you talk to anybody, they'll say, well, I eat really well.
Is that
right?
true?
That's
my next
is that
question.
true?
Really?
The reality is they don't, right? The reality is they're not conscientious of what they're putting in their bodies. Their relationship as to what goes in and on their bodies is, they're not, in my opinion, they're not being honest with themselves. They're not being honest with themselves. And because if they were, they would be feeling differently. Honestly, they would potentially aesthetically look differently. And so I know it not to be true. I think, one of the things that I look at is I don't look at food as food. And I don't look at, water as water. I look at it as fueling.
Yes.
And I think about this as my vehicle. And if I want this vehicle to run, I have to put the right fuel in it. And
that's a very athlete mindset.
It
Most
is.
people don't, although I tend to define everybody who moves with a purpose as an athlete.
right.
Most people don't view themselves like, oh, well, you're a sports doctor, you take care of athletes. Well, I actually take care of active people of all ages and skill levels.
Right. I like the word fueling versus eating, because I think it aligns more with when, especially our generation of folks, Gen Xers, right, is this calories in, calories out, good calories, bad calories, blah, blah, blah. People have sort of forgotten that what a calorie is the measurement of energy. And when you realize that calories is basically your energy, then the type of energy you want is proper fueling energy, right? So it's like, it's changing that mentality and saying, well, if you want to feel a certain way, you have to fuel a certain way. And, when I'm working with my clients, I say, okay, let's just break it down. Let's be really simple about this, right? You're picking up something to put in your body. I want you to just ask yourself, is this going to be good for me? Or is this going to be bad for me? And it's just that simple, right? Like, this makes me feel good. This makes me feel like shit.
Well, it depends on the time frame, right?
Yeah, right.
A chocolate truffle, dark chocolate truffle, makes me feel good in the instant.
Yeah.
But the next morning, I'm highly inflamed.
Yes.
So it's a time period, right?
It is a time period. It is a time period. And, but it's like simple things like that. When I'm working with folks, I really, again, it makes zero sense to me that anybody would choose all the products on the market that are going to solve all these things if on a day-to-day basis you're not fueling properly.
So do you think people are genuinely surprised at what you tell them to do? Eat vegetables, not fat, eat sugar.
Yes.
Because they're genuinely surprised.
Yes.
They have never heard what it takes to live healthy before.
What I say,
Really?
Yeah, I know. What I say to them is I say, maybe you recall this conversation with, maybe it was your grandparents, where you were sitting at the table and they would say, eat your vegetables, sit still, pay attention. Or maybe they would say, go outside, play with your friends. These very simple, what I call time-tested, proven techniques are actually the fundamentals of basic health. And they've been handed down from generation to generation. And if you extract what it is that your grandparents or your great-grandparents or your parents may have been saying, is they're basically saying, put proper foods in your body, be present in what you're doing, spend time with community, your friends, your family, read a book, educate your mind, right? And go to sleep. Get good sleep, get good rest. And when you look at that's how it was explained, that's actually what they were saying. And all of that still exists today. And it's funny because now we're in this you know, everything is cyclical, but like right now, what's really important? Sleep. Right? When in the 80s, it was like, never sleep, work all the time. It'll be so amazing. You don't need to sleep. You'll sleep when you die, you know, that sort of mentality. And now we're in this, you know, world of like, no. Honestly, people, you need to be getting a good 7 to 9 hours of, you know, uninterrupted sleep, you know, so.
Well, that's why I ask you. It's not rocket science.
No.
People have heard it before. People know what to do. They don't do it.
Right.
I'm asking you this question because maybe you've cracked the code, because I've been doing this a long time. And people at varying parts of my career have gotten this information from me for free. They get it from me with me standing with them on the indoor football field at University of Pittsburgh in the start classes, right? Where people paid me some amount of money, paid the university some amount of money to have me present, literally on the field with them, exercising, and 50% of people still had attrition.
Right.
Or people have paid me a lot of money, like mortgage money, and still they get all the information and don't do it. So have you cracked the code? Because, yes, right?
Not yet, but I'm trying.
And what do you think goes into cracking the code of consistency? And I'll tell everybody's heard me say it a million times, but how can you increase compliance?
I really try to break it down to simplicity. What I think happens is people overcomplicate the most basic things, right? If I say to someone, hey, I want to see you, you know, eat 5 great dinners and blah, blah, blah. They're like, okay, well, I went on the internet and I found this guy or this girl and she showed me how to meal prep. And so I bought all the dishes and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, no. Let's not do that. Let's not meal prep, right? Because if that feels like complicated or it feels like it took too much effort, the reality is you're not going to repeat that.
But why does it take you as a health coach, not you personally, but why does it take a health coach to tell people what they know already?
Well, it's interesting. So, I don't know if most people know this, and actually, I don't even think I realized this when I went into the space of health coaching, is that the curriculum that I've been through 2 different curriculums now, and I should be studying for my national boards. I'll put that on hold for right now, but is that most of the training is not centered on health-related information. Most of the training is focused on behavior change. Most of the training is about, because as a health coach, you are not to prescribe and you are not to tell someone what to do. As a health coach, your job is to basically find that intrinsic motivation that's going, no, I'm serious,
I
that's
had no
going
idea.
to help
I'm
somebody
just going to
make
say,
change.
that's bullshit. I've been a doctor 30 years.
Yes.
Really?
No, I'm serious. So most of the curriculum is focused on how do you encourage a person to basically create
so it's a giant
plan.
pep talk.
It can feel like a pep talk, and I can also, but again, I think the point of it is that if a person is not committed to it, they aren't going to be successful.
Exactly. Well, the point is, okay, I see the point in needing a coach.
Yes.
But if the coach can't provide good information,
well, the coach
then
can
you
educate
consistently.
Yes.
The coach is going to be consistently telling you to make a plan.
Yes.
Which includes bonbons. Yeah. I mean, it makes you feel good. I mean, I'm just now doubting the whole field of it.
I don't think you should doubt it, because I think, first of all, I think it works the best in collaborative care. I think it works the best when a doctor has said, hey, Vonda, I need you to do this thing, and here is a prescription or whatever. They are given a directive. They are now they're taking this directive, and they have to figure out, how do they execute it? How do they bring that thing into their lives, into their lifestyle, and execute it in the way that which the doctor? That's actually where a health coach comes in, is because by having a conversation and understanding, where a person is or what might be preventing them, or, and having a dialogue with them, and then looking for the motivation, it has to be intrinsic. It cannot be extrinsic because they won't do it, right? Extrinsic is the doctor telling you to do it.
I think,
it has to be the internal.
So I think in the traditional allopathic model where a doctor is directive, a health coach is needed. In my model where I take care of the whole person, and when people come to me one-on-one to get an unbreakable blueprint, it is not only directive, but it is, I guess I'm a health coach too. I don't really, not trying to be, but we look at all the words you've said, honesty. Who do you want to be?
Right.
If that's your truth, that's not what you're living.
Right.
I mean, I tend to be a tough love type person. That's the people who come to me know that.
Yes.
Because being soft with people is going to kill them.
Most people are not getting from their doctors what you're giving. You know that.
Right.
And you're 100% correct, right? There has to be a reflection. When someone says to me, I just can't do it. I mean, honestly, I've had so many clients come in and first thing they do is give me all the reasons why things don't work for them.
Sure, you can't out-excuse me.
Right.
I've been doing
they
this
give me
too
all
long.
the reasons why things don't work. And as a health coach, what you're looking for is, when they're done, is saying, well, what does work for you? Like, okay, well, give me a scenario where you've tried anything and it worked for you. And, maybe it's, well, I really wanted to, learn how to, I don't know, change a tire. Okay. What did you do in order to do that? Okay. And it's looking for those things that work for that individual that you can then translate into, okay, how do we get sort of that mentality, knowing that this is how this person works? And then how do we incorporate this information so that we can jointly build a plan, right? And then, because what we're doing is we're increasing their opportunity for success. I'm not saying it's going to be 100% successful, but we're trying to move them in that direction. And part of the thing is like, and I appreciate that you work that way. The training that I just went through for a year, we had a physician actually in our group. And the reason she was taking the training is that she has been traditional in her approach. And she's also, sort of structured in what she can deliver through insurance. And she's moving into a different stage of life, and she's moving into a different type of practice. And she wants to make sure that when she's giving the directive, that she's also now having the conversation to get to a place where there can be compliance, right?
Well, and you know what? It's not always for me figuring out what's worked for you in the past, because clearly something has worked for people. Figuring out how to eat 1,000 extra calories a day has worked, right? So I usually take an approach of, who do you want to be? Really?
Yes.
Be honest with yourself.
Yes.
Who do you want to be? You want to be healthy? Well, there's a pathway for this. Do you want to feel amazing? There's a pathway for this. But if that's not who you want to be, there's no judgment. Just be you. But realize there are consequences to those
100%.
choices. But in the first section of Unbreakable, I think when I'm on big podcasts and the hosts have actually read the book, they're very surprised that so much of the first section is spent on exactly this.
Yes.
Creating a vision.
Yes.
But creating a vision starts with examining your values.
Yes.
What do you value?
Yes.
And starting really at the heart and soul of that, versus skipping ahead to section 2, which is all prescriptive.
Yes.
Yeah.
So everything you just outlined is what a health coach learns.
Oh!
Yep.
Dr. Vonda Wright, orthopedic sports surgeon,
And health
coach, apparently. Yes.
But it's true.
And entrepreneur. Yes.
100%. We basically learn about their values. We identify their strengths.
Yeah.
We talk about what is your long-term vision.
Yeah.
And then it's the in-between that we're working on. Okay, and what is it uniquely
let's-
about this person that can help them go from here to here, right? Because what I see fail, honestly, is a person goes to a doctor, they go to a dietitian, they're handed this one page that says, eat 8 servings of this,
that's
blah, blah,
total
blah.
flop.
They
That's a
cannot
total
do
failure.
it. They're like, I cannot execute this.
So, I just explained the Unbreakable way, but if you're going to give people listening, okay, here are the 3 steps to identifying who you are, what you care about, and how you're going to take the very next step. Because what's interesting about this whole thing is that in the last section of the Unbreakable book, we talk about the 3 C's of building resilience, which is control, commitment, and challenge. All of those could be translated back to not only prisoners of war, which is what the research was on, but health coaching.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why when I don't love, by the way, I don't love the the phrase health coach.
I don't either. It
I just
means
don't.
nothing.
And
Yeah.
so when I present myself, I typically call myself a wellness strategist. Why?
I saw that.
Because I don't love health coach, and I don't think that's how I approach it. When someone comes to me, they're telling me where they are. Then we get to the like, well, where do you want to be? Okay, well, in between, that's a gap strategy. So I take my business skills and I say, I'm going to create with you a gap strategy, and I'm going to manage and measure a person the same way I would manage and measure a business, right? Is we're going to build out these goals, or we're going to figure out how you're going to do it that matches your lifestyle, and in work, it would be your work style, right? And then we're basically going to track, because we manage what we measure, or we measure what we manage, right? And so, and that's how I work with folks. And I give myself the right to fire a person if we keep building things and we've gone round and round and we're matching their lifestyle.
Committed.
They're just not committed.
Yeah.
And I don't want to waste their time,
They're
and I don't
being
want
dishonest
them to
with who they are.
Exactly. And I try to give folks like really simple things to put in their brain. Like what I will say to somebody is, okay, instead of worrying about 8 servings of vegetables and fruits and blah, 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 here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about 9 colors. And today what I want you to do is put 9 colors in your diet. And they're like, oh, I can't do that. I'm like, you could put 5 in a smoothie. And the reason is because one of the things that we're trying to establish is we want those phytonutrients in the body, right? We want to start correcting what probably is disruptive in their gut. And 9 colors is easy. It's a lot easier than people think. And if that's the only thing they have to worry about on this day, it's so much simpler than saying, you got to do 3 meals with 2 snacks or whatever it is, right? It's just nine colors. And once we sort of master that very basic, then we may layer on the next thing, right? So that's how I work with folks. It's very basic, very simple.
Your gap strategy and what did you call it? Something strategic reminds me of in 2011, I published a book called Guide to Thrive. And basically, it is a business plan for health.
Right.
With 4 steps that I stole from the business community for building a business plan. Basically, the create a vision, take action, assess barriers, measure achievement, reassess, start at the beginning, right?
Yes.
And setting KPIs. So it works. Setting a strategic plan for your health actually works.
It does.
As it does in business.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And it actually, it lands with I work with primarily females, no surprise, but like it works in all cases because they understand conceptually what it is that's happening. They understand the framework.
Yeah.
Yes. So it works. Not 100%. There's always this
right.
isn't working out.
Yeah.
We need to fire each other. But yes. So, yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Because if I could crack the code on people being consistent, well, and that's why when I'm being interviewed, people always want that one last thing. If you have one last thing to tell people, and they're uniformly surprised when I say the one thing that will change your life is believing that you are worth the daily investment in your health.
Yes.
Worth more than everything else you're putting in front of it.
Yes.
And that's a surprising answer because I think people are thinking like, oh, she's going to say 30 minutes of weightlifting or tie your shoes, look both ways going across the street. But it's a self-worth problem, I think.
It is. It is.
So let's see. We got you into your career up into the food businesses. And then I know you guys do a lot of other investing in side things. But then, the reason you joined my team, or I don't know why you joined my team, but one reason that I thought you could probably handle the way I work is because you worked for another frenetic person organizing his world.
Yes.
And people always ask me how I do it all. And after 6 weeks with me, you say, well, you didn't really do it all, but you had a lot of baskets in the air. But I really did do it all for a lot of years because it's just the way my brain works. It's just the way I'm capable. You know what? Sheila Nazarian, who's a plastic surgeon out in L.A., I interviewed her during COVID for my podcast, and what she said struck me. She said, in a very unapologetic way, I have accepted that I am a high-capacity person and I can do all of this.
Yes.
Instead of, prior to hearing her say that, I would say, oh, it's not that hard. Well, for me, it's not that hard, but I think for other people it may be hard, and it helped me learn grace, and it helped me just unequivocally say, listen, I'm just high capacity and I'm going to get this done.
Yes.
But to work with me, someone has to be equally high capacity.
Yes.
So talk about that for a minute, because
I will.
apparently what I'm doing doesn't scare you, which is good because I have very little patience for people who are intimidated by what I do.
Yes. So it's funny. I would say that I feel like I've met my match, actually, because I would say the same thing, is I feel like I'm of high capacity. And my husband always says, you're a unique breed. Mm-hmm. You're a unique breed because you care as much about other people's businesses and their success as you do your own. And that's true. And I don't know why I'm this way. I don't know why I'm this way, but I'm just a natural problem solver. And so something will roll around in my brain until I actually am like, no, I have to get this executed. Like, this has to be finished, But it's funny. It's, I can't remember the lady's name, and I wish I could. She was at the Swell event with us, and she was talking about, she works with, I think she was a psychologist. She works with high performing, and she has a book out talking about high performance. And she was actually talking about the struggle high performing, high capacity people have when it's time to sort of start to back away from that, whether it's you're going into retirement or whatever, and the struggle people have. And I worry about that because I am a high capacity person. I don't know why I'm this way, but my husband would joke, like, you're not great when you just have one job. You're great when you have 4 jobs, like it's the sudden need to do all the things. I was probably at my highest performance in my younger years when I was working in a corporate job, raising my young children, and doing Ironman. I could make all that work.
Yes.
I
completely get that. And yet sometimes there's such, not pushback, because frankly I don't care, but such, what are you doing? How do you do that? That it makes me think, wait, this is normal for me.
Yes.
I don't know what you're talking about, but should I be worried about this?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny because when we moved to we live at the beach now. We lived in Atlanta for a very long time, almost like 3 decades. And then we moved to this sleepy little beach town on the northeast coast of Florida. And my mom was like, you're going to get bored here. I can just tell. I know how you are. And I committed to myself that I was going to try and lean into
Baking cookies?
I don't know. That gives me stress. No, lean into like a simpler way of life where there's not such a structured schedule or so many things rolling around in my mind, and to try to. And honestly, it was so uncomfortable. Yeah. And it was so uncomfortable, and I actually started to think, there's something wrong with me, that I can't relax. There's something wrong with me. And every year at New Year's, like a lot of people have resolutions, I pick a word. And multiple years in a row, the word's been relax. The reality is I'm just a high capacity person. And now I'm starting to lean into it. So this year, I've been like, hey, instead of trying to shut it down, maybe I just learn how to appreciate it and embrace it, because when I'm not appreciating and embracing it, it's actually causing me stress.
I'm glad you said that, and we're having like a kumbaya right now, because the way you and I, or you're learning the way I work, and I run a list.
Yes.
And I memorize things, and I always kind of know where everything is. And when I say I need to run the list, that is relaxing because when I've run the list,
yes.
I can let go.
Yes.
Or, it's, so for some people that maybe she's thinking about more things to do, but running the list is relaxing to me.
Understood.
Right?
Yes.
So isn't that interesting?
Well, it's funny, and everyone is going to learn how Vonda and I work together. So I'm learning this concept. Everybody has their work style, right?
Yeah.
And Vonda's is run the list. What's interesting to me is I'm trying to adapt to the run the list and get into how you work. What I've learned is I'm so used to running my own list without anyone asking me about it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like previously, it was just like, hey, I know Lauren's got this, so I'm not worried about it. What is interesting in this dynamic is this is the first time that I've had to run the list to another person.
Sure.
Normally it's just going on in my
Sure.
mind.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to get to like, how do I make this more efficient? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do I become very efficient with this? Because this is the first time I actually have to tell somebody this is the list and this is where we are on all the things in the list.
But then that's relaxing.
Yes.
Because then I let it go for
Yes.
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yes. So I'm getting there. It's all in my brain, and it's just the action of, then
Because
telling
I frankly find relaxing, like laying on a canopy on the beach or a little like twitchy.
Yes.
I'm a little twitchy.
Yes.
Doing
Does your
that.
husband say to you, I never see you not working? Or like, because he's retired. Yes?
He's retired, but the reality about Peter Taglianetti is the minute he retired from 16-hour work days, okay, don't be jealous. He does every frigging thing.
Yes. Yeah.
He does 80% of what our family needs, and I pick up because I'm working outside the home, right?
Correct.
So I'm the lucky one, so it's not that he's not busy. Yeah, sitting around is not amazing for me. That being said, he and I do sit together for about an hour in the morning.
That's nice.
That's relaxing.
Yes.
But that is my ritual to get into the day,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So anyway, but we were talking about the relaxing of high capacity people is just different.
It is different.
From
Yes.
other people with different capacities. Because
Yes.
I don't find self-care, to me, doesn't necessarily mean a day in the spa.
Right.
Because I can only sit there for like
Right.
15 minutes.
Yes. You'll notice I rarely have my nails done. Why? I don't like to sit there. I have gray hair because
Every 6 weeks you don't
could not stand.
sit
It was
there.
3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh.
I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is not how I want to spend my time. I could be productive doing something else, So I am very similar to you. It's funny, when I talked to my husband about this, one day we were going for a walk, which, by the way, walking used to be difficult for me.
Yeah.
I was like, I can run there faster. Like, why would I walk? But now I am easing into being a walker. So my husband and I will take the dogs for a walk, and he and I have been talking about, again, we live in this lovely little, I don't want to tell everybody where it is because I don't want y'all to move there because people get mad when people move there. It gets overpopulated. So I live in this little beach town, and it's so lovely, and we'll go for walks, and we talk about it. Like, are we going to have to go to therapy when we're older because we don't know how to ease into an easier way of life? He's like, he always says he thinks he'll do fine with time because he's also in a high capacity. He's a high performing, executive. And he's like, but I never see you not working. I never see you not being able to put your mind towards something where you're doing something. And I think he's right. I think
You know what? Yeah. He's right.
Yeah.
He's right. Because I had this grand plan of retiring when I was 55. Because when I was 35, that seemed like a long time. So 55. Well, I didn't retire when I was 55. In fact, I took another big job when I was 55. But at this point, I agree with you. I don't know what relax and retire means. Not
Right.
because I don't relax or can't think about retiring, but I think I will always do something. It may change. But I'm going to tell you for sure, people, this relax and retiring business, my parents were also high capacity business owners, started companies late in life. And then when I had my youngest daughter at 68, they sold their company, sold their house, and moved to Pittsburgh to help me. They're now, 18 years later now, these 86-year-olds are bored out of their skull. And for, most of the time my mother's like, oh, I envy you young girls because you get to work. And because she was a high capacity person. She knew 3 languages. She immigrated here. My dad, do you know what my dad does now for fun to keep his brain going? He's translating the Greek New Testament, which is an unspoken language, into English just to keep his brain going and to bide the time.
That's crazy.
Right.
But it keeps
Keeps it going.
Keep it
So
going.
I think relaxing means different things to different people. But so what's the futures, right? Because we've been going on about ourselves for about an hour, and I think it's very interesting, but I don't know if my audience will. So what is the future? What do you, for the health of this country, for the health of this project we're doing.
I mean, what I'm most excited about and what I'm really happy about is that more and more information is coming to the public. I don't necessarily love how it's being delivered. You know, I don't love social media. I feel like it's like a necessary evil. I
What's
don't
the
love
better
it.
way?
I don't know. I don't know that there is, honestly. It used to be, right, we searched on the internet until obviously Google was really just an advertising platform and you only were delivered information that somebody was willing to pay for you to see, right? And now we're in this world of AI and people are using ChatGPT or whomever, Gemini, whatever, to do their searching, right? But we're in this world where there's so much information, podcasts, social media, blah, blah, blah. I mean, so what I'm excited about, I'm excited that information. I'm excited about what's happening in women's health. I was very delighted to hear Maria Shriver, you know, who has been an ambassador, an advocate for women's health. I loved hearing what she had to say at this well. So I feel really excited. I'm excited for what the menopause is doing. I'm excited for people, for women to understand that they feel off actually means something. And that could actually be a diagnosis at some day. You know, like I just don't feel like myself.
Yep.
That's important, right? And having gone through this and have many, many women friends who are going through this, I'm excited that they finally have information, that there are tools, and that those tools are, it feels like being promoted everywhere. So I'm excited for all of those things. And so, you know, I think what's difficult, right, is that we have to be educated enough to discern what is the right solution and what is not. And we do have a tendency in this country and probably globally just to overcomplicate things. There's a lot of, you know, I know we kind of jokingly call it bro science out there and the biohacking community. People, if you are not executing against basic fundamentals of health and getting those 9 colors in a day and making sure that you're getting your protein and your fiber, you know, if you're not doing the basics, all of that other stuff, that's like level 200, 400. You don't need that yet. Executing against the basics, right? And I guarantee, as you do, is that if they were doing that consistently every day, they would just in general feel a ton better. But there's a lot that I'm excited about. I'm disappointed in some of the things that are happening with this administration, not to get political, but like I do feel like we as females have to just keep pushing forward. We are the 51%, right? And so we just have to keep pushing forward. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited to be a part of it.
I think it's the most exciting time to age in the history of the world.
Yes.
And so whether it's AI generated, using the exponential power of technology, I think we have a lot of potential. I agree with you that most people who come to me wanting really wacko longevity stuff, which I am happy to talk about with people, have not yet optimized their health, and they come to me feeling fine. I feel fine.
Right.
And so, at least in my hands, we spend a long time optimizing health. And if we get there, then we'll apply all the cool things we did to the pro athletes I took care of to move us into peak performance. And only then will I personally talk about the wacko evidence influence, not evidence-based longevity gadgets, because there's so much basic to get right.
And I want to praise you because last year I came to the conference, the Women's Health Conversations, which is coming up again
November 15th. If you haven't registered, we're going to sell out, so get on it, people.
And I will just tell you my personal experience. I was a little apprehensive because I went by myself. And of course, my girlfriend's like, what are you doing this week? And I'm like, I'm going to a menopause conference. And like, oh, okay. And I went by myself, which I've gone to a lot of conferences and events by myself. But I went by myself. And it was the first time, and I guess I'm a little bit tomboyish, and I grew up in a male-dominated industry. But I felt the community of women. That was like really the first time I felt a community of women and felt like I was not alone in the experiences that I was having. Like every female that goes through perimenopause to menopause, I really thought I had dementia. I really thought, I was like, is this what the second half feels like? Because this is terrible. To use your word, it was bullshit. I was like, this is terrible. And I learned so much at that summit. I walked out of there feeling very inspired. I took that message home to people. And the way you phrase things I really appreciate that you're like, not on my watch. We
Yeah.
don't have to be frail. That doesn't have to be, even though all the TV I've ever watched in my childhood would indicate 45 and 50 is old as hell. That is not the reality. That is not the reality of what I'm experiencing, you know? And I look at people who are older than I am and I see that they are aging well. And I just want to say thank you. You know, thank you for being honest with people. Thanks for doing the work and doing the research. And honestly, like, longevity is exciting. And you say it, right? Is like the thing I can tell you is that from the moment you're born, you are aging.
Yes.
And it is an honor to do that. Do you know what I mean? It is part of life. And so, like, to be able to do that well and to have folks like you who are making sure that people understand that, and that frailty is not your destination.
Yeah.
It can be so much better and so much different. I want to say thank you. And again, everybody come to the summit. So it
Women's
was
Health
great.
Conversations.
It was
Yes.
great.
Please register. So, Lauren, thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
You will be seeing much more of us, and we have amazing things planned. So, for Hot for Your Health, subscribe, tell all your friends, share it with your friends, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us on Hot for Your Health, where we bring you conversations from the bleeding edge of science, health, and culture. You can find links from today's show and connect with me at drvondawright.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Dr. Vonda Wright. See you next week.